Okay, here we go. Welcome into the show, everybody. It's 5:30 Eastern time. We'll take you up until 6 o'clock. This is the Slate. We are a DraftKings program. If you found us, we are live on the DK Live, DK Nation Twitter handle, also coming to you on YouTube and Twitch. Jeff Ulrich, Brendan Glasheen, it's your evening programming to get you set for the week and kind of kickstart the week. Big day yesterday and Saturday in the National Football League. Divisional round weekend concludes. We have our matchups for the NFC and AFC championship games. NFC championship game will go first next Sunday, then the AFC title game. Rematch of last year, the AFC title game. We got Cincinnati and Kansas City. Health is a key to that one, both sides, but more so now for the Chiefs, clearly. At the quarterback position, and then Eagles and Niners. They met last year in early September, but did not meet this year. So that's fascinating. Jeff, what'd you make of the weekend, and what are your thoughts? Your opening thoughts? Just kind of consuming or digesting the matchups here.
Yeah, I mean, look, we didn't get like the best football, but I think we what we got in spite of it is like some pretty interesting matchups here for the conference championship week. So, I mean, my biggest thought coming out of the week is, like just looking where the public is headed and stuff like that. And, whether there's actual value in fading that or whether that's a thing or whether you should care. I don't know, but I look at these teams and, you've obviously got Brock Purdy and the 49ers kind of getting undervalued. And then the Eagles coming off the big win. And, I look at that game first and I understand, I think that a lot of what you're just seeing in terms of movement right now, it's just based around numbers. So, for me, like the Eagles are probably the play until you get to 3. And then, you might even start thinking about taking the other side. But you got to love how the Eagles just, came out of the bye week, obviously, and looked and did exactly what they should have done, which is run over a completely inferior team. I'm very wary against betting against the 49ers, but I do have my concerns that like this is going to be too much for Brock Purdy. I really feel like Dallas, I don't want to say they should have won that game because Dak really didn't play that well either, but like they could have won that game even despite Dak. And like Hurts isn't going to make the same mistakes. So San Francisco is going to have to do something different. Like they're going to have to jump on the Eagles here a little bit. I definitely think that there's more paths to winning there for the Eagles. And then the Bengals game, this one is flipped already. So, I mentioned it this morning when it was +1, the Bengals. You can wait and see if like you get some Mahomes news coming out, but you may just have to take like the worst number on the Bengals if you wait. And obviously now that's where we're at. It doesn't change that much. I mean, it went from -105 on the money line to -115. So if you still like Cincinnati, just take them. But clearly, like the Chiefs are now finally getting where you could say they're maybe they're a little bit undervalued. But I don't know, man. I don't really want to bet against Joe Burrow. So.
Yeah, hard to blame you. 21-5 in his last 26 against the spread. That's the Bengals as a team with Burrow under center. Now, they're not dogs. Clearly, that's flipped today, as you brought up. But I think that ends a lengthy – I have to get the numbers straight, but that ends a lengthy streak for Kansas City being a favorite in consecutive playoff games because they've been a favorite. Yeah, they've been a favorite since they've made the playoffs. I can't remember the last time the Kansas City Chiefs were a dog. Well, they're a road team. Of course, they're at home this week, so that's a huge factor. I realize that, but they've also been at home a ton at Arrowhead for this particular game and games leading up to it. I'll have to find it. I'll get a hold of it in a moment here. But I thought you've been big on Philadelphia this year. How do you think Jalen Hurts looked? I don't think he looked overly impressive, but I was I think he was fine, right? I thought the way they used Dallas Goedert was great. Devontae Smith had a big day because it just opens up for him when there's all that attention on AJ Brown, which that addition in of itself, as well as the McCaffrey addition for San Fran. I was looking back when they played last year, early in the season. Of course, the quarterback's different for San Francisco, but both of these offenses look very different. Jalen Hurts has taken steps in his development, but neither team had McCaffrey, and McCaffrey wasn't there for San Fran, and AJ Brown wasn't present for the Eagles. So I am interested to see how much of a factor those would be. But I don't know. I thought Jalen Hurts was okay in this game. Yeah. Of course, the hype going in the shoulder.
I mean, look, like, let's just talk about these games from a general perspective. Because, like, honestly, I mean, I'm going to be making some bets later in the week as well and stuff like that. And I mean, like, full disclosure, the Eagles were the one team I bet on preseason, to the Super Bowl. So,
right.
Like, it's a little bit easier for me to hedge if I wanted to or whatever. But I think, like, when you're looking at this game, the one trap that, we may be getting into with the Eagles is the exact same thing that just happened with the Giants. The Giants just pummeled a weak defense. They beat the Vikings in an underdog spot. And then everyone was talking about how good the Giants were and how Daniel Jones was all of a sudden, like, he doesn't get enough respect. We should have Daniel Jones instead of Jalen Hurts. Well, the Eagles just pummeled a bad team in the Giants. And is the same thing happening here? It could be. Like, this isn't the same. Like, obviously Jalen Hurts isn't Daniel Jones and the Eagles aren't the Giants. The Eagles are a very good team. They were, obviously, won a bunch of games in a row, looked like they might go undefeated at one point, and they're really good. But, I mean, they're not unbeatable, as we've seen, obviously. And the 49ers are just an absolute team of just, like, they just get at it, man, at every position. Like, there's no let up there anywhere. And, like, even if the Eagles, give Brock Purdy a little bit of trouble, like, San Francisco could just find some spots in this defense, in this Eagles defense, and just roll over them, whether it's through the run game, whether it's with Kittle, Debo. Like, there's San Francisco is just, it's a very hard team to hold down in all facets of an offense. So, I'm not writing them off. Like, I'm looking at this game and I'm still just digesting this number. Like, I don't know that I could consider the Eagles at anything above 3. So, at this point, with all the money piling in on the Eagles, I'm almost wondering why this number hasn't moved yet as well, which worries me a little bit because I don't think that the books want to get the 49ers up to 3. I don't think they want liability on the 49ers. So, to me, I'm going to sit back. I may end up taking a piece of San Francisco again, as a hedge as well. But if you're just looking at this game early on and you just take the 2.5, probably fine. This number will probably move at some point, but I just feel it's a little bit interesting that we do have, again, going to the DraftKings sportsbook splits, 77%, 79% of the bets, 77 of the handle. It's all on Philly early, and we still haven't seen any movement. So, it's a key number. It's not like we're moving past through one and the money line, but it's something to keep an eye on.
These two teams, the chatter. Really, it's really the NFC all year, not just these teams, but the whole conference. But who have these teams played is going to be a topic of discussion throughout the course of the week, because you look at the Philly schedule. They beat the Giants, of course, in the playoff game, beat up on them really once. The second game didn't matter in week 18. The Eagles also beat the Vikings week 2, and we came to find out that it meant something because both teams made the playoffs, but was that really all that impressive? And for the Niners, who they really played, their schedule was also pretty soft too. And the one team they lost to in blowout fashion was a team remaining in these playoffs, Kansas City. That was with Jimmy Garoppolo as the quarterback, but they have turned a corner with Purdy to a degree, right? I'm not trying to overblow the quarterback play, but Purdy, he made some tough throws over the middle to Christian McCaffrey. Kittle bailed him out on that bobble catch over the top. Yeah. That was a huge play. That was a game-changing play.
And one thing that worries me, and like, again, we're talking about the play in general to early this morning, but I feel like, some people are just all in on Brock Purdy, and I get that, just like blindly going in on a guy. It's a great story. I mean, if you're going to go blindly in on someone, go in on Brock Purdy. It's a great story. He's a 7th round pick. Yeah. I worry a little bit that, like, when I look at this and I'm thinking, well, Purdy can't come in and beat the Eagles. that maybe I'm getting a little bit of blinders. And that's what, again, like we come back to the San Francisco quarterback position, and it's just like, even last week against the 49ers, like he just doesn't have to do that much. And really what's going to change between this week and next week, between the Cowboys and the Eagles, he's like, is his job really going to get that much harder because it's the Eagles? I don't know. So, like if the 49ers could do it last week, like he can probably do it this week. So I'm more torn on this game for sure than the other one. And it's one I'm just kind of sit back and digest a bit. But, this line is interesting so far. Again, the Eagles probably are the play here, but I've had respect. We talked about San Francisco at the start of the year. I mean, I was telling people to bet them for the division, take the over. Like I just have too much respect for Kyle Shanahan to just sit here and be like, oh yeah, like the Eagles, this is easy. I mean, I'm not going to say that. If anything, I think that waiting on this game, this one particularly, might be like a good idea.
Yeah, I remember you were very high on this team. We were like the San Francisco Niners beat like we were the San Fran beat show here for a while.
And I mean, like a lot of that was like, Trey Lance, obviously an upgraded quarterback, but I mean, like the other part of that is just like Kyle Shanahan. I mean, like there's no peer for him in terms of just like the offense that he runs. I mean, there's no one else out there. I mean, what other team would be able to like take a Brock Purdy and go to the Super Bowl? Yeah, I would give Andy Reid a chance. I should say that Andy Reid is like right up there, but still, I think that like, it's pretty much Kyle Shanahan, and that's where the conversation ends.
Yeah, I'm thinking. It's definitely not Bill Belichick anymore. Well, he won 2 games with Bailey Zappi.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'll give Belichick a little bit of credit. He just doesn't have a good enough overall team, though, to do it this right now.
That's right, because Belichick gifted
his time may have passed.
Belichick gifted Kyle Shanahan Jimmy Garoppolo, and Jimmy Garoppolo is what turned Kyle Shanahan's whole life around. But in his defense, that is actually an excellent point, and we've in the Dayball angle to win Coach of the Year is definitely valid, and he probably deserves it. But let's remember what Kyle Shanahan, what was brought up the moment, not even when Trey Lance was traded for, they decided to go with Lance. But remember what look at Kyle Shanahan's straight up record with and without Garoppolo. He needs Garoppolo to win, and he has totally changed that narrative the way this team's played. So Shanahan is the 3rd most profitable coach in the playoffs over the last 20 years at 7-1 against the spread. If he wins against the Eagles against the number, he would be 2nd best, only behind Tom Coughlin. How about that? Tom Coughlin.
And how many games have the 49ers won in a row? I mean, we're talking 1, 2, 3, 4,
7, 8.
No,
7?
It's way more than that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Well, I was thinking with Purdy.
They've won 12 games in a row, and with Purdy, it's 8.
So it's and the last loss was to Mahomes, right? Kansas City.
Yeah, it was.
Yep.
So
and that's when their defense got kind of exposed, but now of course Mahomes is
you're betting against a healthy 49. Like if you're taking the Eagles, and again, I'm not saying that you shouldn't. I'm just saying if you're betting against a healthy 49ers team who's won 8 games with Purdy, who hasn't lost since week 8. Like again, what like I come back to like what's changed? Like okay, they've had a little bit of an easier schedule. They've still beaten New Orleans. They've still beaten like division rivals in Seattle. They've beaten Tampa Bay. They just beat Dallas. Like, I just don't know.
Miami, that's a good win. Miami too.
What's that?
I think Miami's a pretty good win. I know it's at their place, but
Miami. Yeah, no, that's actually I missed that one. Yeah, so no, that's fair. I just don't know what is going to change so much for Frisco. Between like with Philly this week, they're just a really, really hard team to play, I think. So,
if you didn't have Eagles futures, would you bet San Francisco at 2.5?
Yeah, no, I still would. That's the thing. Like, it wouldn't just be like, I'm not just saying this because it's a hedge. I mean, this is from a complete, just, looking at this game. I'm not even trying to take in the line right now. I'm just trying to talk about these teams straight up.
Fair enough.
I mean, we've seen, we've seen San Francisco in every situation with different quarterbacks. And now we're just saying that because it's Philadelphia, something's going to change. So I admittedly have my concerns about Brock Purdy. And I think that if the 49ers do lose, he will be getting exposed, and he almost got exposed against Dallas. The red zone pick. There were so many moments in that Dallas game where Dallas should have won. And I think that, again, if you're betting the Eagles, that's where you should be. That's basically your line. Dallas should have won that game, because I do think that Dallas could have. Dak throws a bit cleaner game. They get that one pick, which they really should have had, or the one. If Mike McCarthy is just more aggressive in the play calling, so it was that was a scary game, but they still won. And
yeah, well, so, Pollard getting hurt. I think I'll admit I was on the Dallas side, and I'm like, oh, Pollard's hurt. That is going to come back and bite.
I was on Dallas too, and there was just there was about 5 moments in that game where the tide could have and probably should have turned in our favor, but it didn't. But and again, if you're betting the Eagles, your argument is the Eagles aren't going to do those same things, and I think that's a pretty valid argument. So it's a really interesting spot. I think that's how you should be looking at this game. If you like the Eagles, I just broke it down for you. But again, if you're just blindly betting the 49ers and taking the points, your argument is 12 straight wins against everyone, and the team's healthy. And what is going to change now? Nothing. So,
right. Okay, I got my stat on Mahomes and the Chiefs. So this will be Patrick Mahomes if indeed he plays. Which I think he's going to play. He said himself he's going to play, but he ain't the doctor, right? So Mahomes, this will be his 17th start in January or later. He's been favored in all 17 of them, which that is no longer the case. Now, if we get good news on him, does the line flip again? Because the line was already built in at Chiefs -1.5 when it opened, that he's going to be available to play. But perhaps it's flipping because folks are jumping on Cincinnati, and they probably deserve to be favored. But this would be the first time Mahomes won't be favored in a game in January or later as the starter. And in those games, 12-4, straight up, 8-8 against the number.
Yeah. Everything.
This is where I think they could use Tyreek Hill.
I could sit here and say, the narrative's flipped. Now it's Kansas City who are the underdogs and everyone's doubting Mahomes, but it just doesn't really feel like that. It still feels like everyone's just oh, well, it's Mahomes, it's one ankle. I think I don't, everything just here is just pointing me to the Bengals.
Yeah. And
I think maybe you've seen that a little bit in the line. Maybe we'll get some Kansas City action here, middle of the week. But I just look at these teams too. Again, let's just break it down. Let's not even think about the numbers for a sec. Where does Kansas City have an edge here? I would argue their defense played okay. Their young secondary played pretty good, but they're not going up against a rookie quarterback or an inexperienced quarterback in the playoffs. They're not going up against what I would call a bit of a ragtag group of receivers. You got Jamar Chase, you've got T. Higgins, and Joe Burrow now. And then on the flip side to that, Travis Kelce is Travis Kelce, but the Bengals are very good at scheming up against tight ends. They've done it all year. They've really improved in that area. And so what are you asking the Chiefs maybe to beat them here with Marquez Valdez-Scantling and Juju Smith-Schuster? I don't see it, man. I don't think they're gonna dink and dunk, and I don't think that's gonna work against Cincinnati. I'm not gonna predict a blowout with Patrick Mahomes on the other side or something, but if Cincinnati won this game convincingly, it's probably not going to happen. But I wouldn't be that shocked. I think you'll still get a close game for the simple fact Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes are just too good at football. And, as good as Joe Burrow is playing, Patrick Mahomes is still the best quarterback in the league, in my opinion. So it's just it's going to be tough. But, the ankle injury, as you just mentioned, the lack of Tyreek Hill, the lack of explosive option. Again, I'm going to sit back and digest a little bit today. Either you got your money in early or you didn't, but with the line still at money line, I'm not overly, optimistic for Kansas City here.
Yeah. And look, and I'm not trying to knock what the Chiefs accomplished without Hill. They were a phenomenal offense. Their precision, their attention to detail, utilizing Kelsey as a number one target. Their offense was way more efficient, as the numbers will tell us, without Tyreek Hill. Now, yards after catch, Hill provided that explosiveness, and he did just fine in Miami. But now, with your quarterback banged up and taking hits, going down in awkward situations where he can't scramble as well or be elusive and get out of the pocket and be mobile, it wouldn't be bad to have a guy like that just to flip it off to the side in a screen or something of that and get out and run. And that's where I think the irony now is I think they might miss that
player. To the exact same point as San Francisco, the Bengals have won 11 straight games.
Yeah.
What is changing this week? Their road record at this point is so absurd. They're 9-1 ATS. Oh, actually, that's 9-1 ATS in their last 10 games on grass, which, is actually kind of interesting as well. But they're 9-1 ATS in their last road games. I believe that's the correct stat as well, but it's something ridiculous. They just, they cover in the spot. They win in this spot. And again, you're getting a team that's healthy that, healthy enough. I mean, they had the O-line injuries, but their O-line, they may even get healthier. Alex Kappa could be back this week,
Yes.
So what is changing with Cincinnati that really makes you want to go against them here? You have to think really hard, I think, if you want to go against the Bengals. And to the point that I just made about San Francisco, I think you have to think hard about going against them too. And I think San Francisco is almost, again, they have a tougher opponent, I think, in some ways, but in some ways they're almost a more attractive bet because they're getting points. So it's really interesting. I feel like some people are going to be talking themselves off these teams who've been so dominant, run so well. And I guess I guess I'm kind of coming to the conclusion that we're going to get a Cincinnati, San Francisco Super Bowl.
I just think so. This is both a credit and a critique of that analysis in terms of the AFC. I think the NFC is so watered down, but San Francisco to me has looked really presentable. Now I know they had the Raiders game that wasn't a great game, and you also, again, like I said, you look at both teams, San Fran and Philadelphia, and you look at their schedules and go, well, who have they beat? Do we really buy into what they've been doing since they lost to Mahomes? And that's exactly it. They lost to Mahomes and the Chiefs. Who have they really beat? Difference now with Cincinnati is we have more respect, I think, for the opponents that they've had to face in the AFC. They did beat Mahomes and the Chiefs again earlier in the year. That was a game at home in Cincinnati. Now, what can't escape my mind is, and maybe this is just a credit to John Harbaugh, and when you play teams in your division, outside of the Giants and the Eagles, when you play teams in your division, there's familiarity. John Harbaugh's a really good coach. He's got personnel in that defense to get to Joe Burrow, and that just could be a matchup thing where Joe Burrow in his career has had issues against teams in his division. When you look at against the spread, straight up, those are the teams that get to him. And the Ravens got to him all year. They look at the game that they played early in the season where Tucker hit a game-winning field goal. You look at the game, of course, they're ready to score. That the Ravens are ready to score at the 2, and Hubbard takes it the other way for a touchdown.
It's a very good point. I mean, both Cincinnati and San Francisco had close calls. That Ravens game easily could have tipped in the Ravens' favor. And, the Dallas game was almost like a repeat of that Ravens game. I mean, San Francisco was on the verge there, and Dallas just kept giving them gifts. So,
yeah. But I think Cincinnati had they had some question marks down the stretch. The Tampa game where they rallied back, which is that shows signs of a good win. The Patriots game, they probably should have lost. Ravens game didn't matter. The week 18.
Way tougher schedule though. It's a good point. They played. I mean, Cincinnati has played like winning teams pretty much every week since like week 14. They had Cleveland. I guess they had New England in there. Actually, did New England have a winning record? I can't even remember.
They were 500, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. So again, like it's a good point you make. I mean, the Bengals record is like it's ironclad, man. I mean, from the fact that like they've beaten really good they had a division winner schedule like all these seasons. So
yep.
I don't really have an argument against going against the Bengals other than just it's Mahomes and Andy Reid and like anything is possible. But I think the other one is way more open to interpretation from the simple fact that, you know, the Brock Purdy analysis could lean you one way, but I would warn people against getting too concerned about Brock Purdy. Like I even talked about him this morning, but I almost just feel like it's at this point, what are we worried about? It's 8 games with Brock Purdy they've won. Clearly he's doing something good enough to get the 49ers across the finish line every week. So, you know, we can break down the plays, we can break down his throws. They're succeeding, whether it's in spite or because of Brock Purdy. And I'm not sure how the Eagles are necessarily going to change that. So
I thought he was more mistake-free or put himself in less dangerous spots, Brock Purdy, than he did in the game against Dallas than he did against Seattle.
You thought he put himself in less dangerous spots against Dallas or more?
Less. I thought he was a little smarter with the ball.
He really only had a couple moments. Like he didn't play that great, but like they didn't do anything spectacular. I mean, George Kittle bailed him out. And Trayvon Diggs really bailed him out with that drop. Cause that was probably one, I think that was a bad throw. I mean, some people could just say it was tipped, but like it also like, you know, he threw it right at he seemed to throw it too behind the guy and like right into the line. So I think that was a mistake that he probably got bailed out from, but you know, it's a fair point. Like again, San Francisco just puts him in spots where he doesn't have to do too much. So you're expecting the Eagles to come out and put a lot of pressure on them as well.
Yep.
I don't know.
The year, and you know, I look back, I know it's a high ankle and not a knee, but my last thought too was on Mahomes. I thought back, when was the last time Mahomes was hurt and possibly had to miss time or play injured? Well, it was during the 2019 season, which ended up being right before the pandemic started. So the 2019-2020 season, they went on to beat the Niners 31-20, and Mahomes came back from a knee injury. Remember, he like fell weird in the red zone, and folks are looking at it like, oh my goodness, he could be done. Like they might shut him down for the year. He came back after 3 games. Matt Moore was the starting quarterback for the Green Bay game, the Minnesota game. And he came back, and I think he may have gotten hurt again, honestly, but his passing yard totals were significantly, his passing yard totals were significantly down. He did not look right the rest of the year. Now, he played well in the playoffs, and Jimmy Garoppolo may have given that game away, but just something to think about. If you go back and look at 2019, when Mahomes had his injured knee, it was not sharp in his first few games back. So
I think one thing that you could think about if Mahomes is starting to is maybe looking at the under in this game. I don't know. I mean, 47 isn't huge to begin with. And obviously, you know, I think the injury is probably baked in, but
Yep.
Here's a stat. Like Mahomes, when he came back, he didn't throw a single pass outside of the pocket in that game last week. So
yeah,
like he's not going to be moving around. If anything, you're going to see more, probably a little trickery, some sweeps and stuff mixed in from the Kansas City Chiefs.
And the good news for the Chiefs too, Pacheco ran the ball well. I thought their running game was good. Like all things considered, they ran the drive when they scored with Henne. That was a 6-minute drive from the 2. Credit to Andy Reid, like that particular drive. Now, can it work for a whole game for the rest of the playoffs? We'll see. But for a drive or 2, Henne did enough.
Yeah,
there were some dangerous throws in there, but Pacheco ran the ball well.
Yeah, I mean, and again, like this is where having a coach like Andy Reid, I mean, like he can game plan. I mean, this is probably like a challenge for Andy Reid. Like he's kind of enjoying this, a part of him, I'm sure, coming up with some kind of game plan this week. So yeah, I mean, again, there's no way I'm writing off any of these 4 teams at this point. I think we've just gotten like kind of, again, like, yes, last week was a little anticlimactic, but like, I think these are like the best matchups we could have hoped for in a lot of ways. So I mean, the Mahomes injury, sure, we wish he was healthy, but like it's kind of added a level of intrigue as well. So yeah, I don't know. I know I'm pretty much.
Jeff needs a good night's sleep, everybody, for more processing.
Yeah, no, I feel like we should. Obviously we got to get out of here soon, but that 49ers Eagles game is definitely like one to think on. And for me, like right now, I don't think there's enough for me to like go against the Bengals. Like I don't even know what the Chiefs. We'll see where that line moves. I mean, if Mahomes gets on the practice field, I feel like it'll stall out. But you could see get the +2, maybe even +2.5 by game time. Who knows?
Yeah, I think again you can make a case for all of these teams. The Chiefs are a tough team to buy in on right now because of the injury. No question, it changes a lot. But yeah, that's why we get the whole week. And look, we are privileged to have the challenge to come on the air the day after and pick it apart and be put on the spot. So good job, Jeff. You've been on, hey, but like you said, as far as the NFC is concerned, you've been on the Bengals too here down the stretch. I'll be fair, but you've been on these teams, Niners, Eagles, for most of the year. So put yourself in a good spot for the coming weekend. We're going to go. Eamon, Daniel, thank you for everything behind the scenes. For Jeff Ulrich, Brendan Glasheen, we will have The Sweat coming your way tomorrow, same platforms at 11 a.m. Eastern time. And then this particular program, The Slate, returns tomorrow in the early evening after that 4 p.m. Madden Sim. We'll see you then. Thanks.